Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast, joined by 1997 leading rebounder in the NCAA tournament, probably the most improved player I've seen from game one to the end of the season, the great AJ Bramlett. Hello, AJ.
How you doing, sir?
All right. First, I got a bone to pick with you, and many people in Tucson have a bone to pick with you, AJ.
All right, let's hear it.
Where's the podcast been? And people, you've got a huge following with that. Where's it been?
Absolutely, man. I really enjoyed doing it. You know, what happened is just they changed their strategy, you know, over at Field of 68, kind of went away from, you know, former players and that format. So that's what happened this year. And so, you know, I was busy with work and everything else, but I really enjoyed doing it. It was a great experience. And, you know, we had fun in the couple of years that we did it.
All right. Now, is there any chance that maybe you could be doing your own thing at some point? Because there is definitely a market for AJ Bramlett's voice in Tucson.
Well, I like to hear that, man. Now that I hear that, there is a possibility probably, man. I would love to do it because, you know, I'm still following the team every week and, you know, a part of the program. And it's been fun, man. This year's team's been really fun to watch.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about this year's team. First and foremost, what are your thoughts when you watch this team? Just, you know, what are just kind of your initial observations, then we'll get down to the nitty-gritty.
Sure. I mean, you know, they have everything that they need to make a deep run. We know that. You know, there's not really a weakness on this team. I thought Tommy did a great job of kind of addressing, you know, some of the deficiencies that we had from last year and bringing in, you know, Keyshawn and Caleb and some guys that, you know, were really good defenders, you know, really athletic and, you know, kind of changed our team in that way. And they've been playing great basketball. I mean, you know, if you look across the landscape of college basketball, there's no dominant team this year. You know, every team can lose. You know, we're one of the few teams that I think can make a run all the way to the end if things, you know, flow right for us. But they're a fun team to watch. They play hard. They play together. You know, Caleb's, you know, been having a hell of a year. And, you know, Pella also, you know, I'm going to give a shout out to Pella. I think he's obviously played his best basketball, you know, as in his career at Arizona. And then Umar's been a solid guy as well. So, you know, I love this team. I think they're, you know, they've done well. Coming down to the nitty gritty now and see what happens with the rest of the pack, you know, 12 in the championship. But, you know, they have everything they need.
When I watch Tommy Lloyd, I remind, and again, it's not perfect, but it reminds me a little bit of Lute, to be honest with you. And just the way that he lets his guys go, he gives his guys the freedom to be able to, you know, make mistakes, to be good, you know, and to learn from it. Do you see some of that?
Absolutely. I think that his demeanor, and you're right about the mistakes, because Coach O, you know, he wasn't a guy that yanked you out as soon as you made a mistake. He let you play through it a little bit. As long as you were playing hard and you were playing as a team and doing the things he wanted you to do, he left you in and gave you kind of a longer leash. And so Tommy's done that. I think that empowers his players. And it makes you feel like he cares about you and you want to be, you know, the best player you can be. So there's definitely some similarities there.
Now, when you guys, obviously, you were an incredibly talented team, and we're going to get to that, but you kind of had the ultimate alpha in a Miles Simon when he came back and whatnot. How important is it and you watch that with Caleb Love, and he seems to kind of be that alpha out there. How important is it to have that one guy where it's like, that's the dude at the end right there?
I think it's really important, and, you know, not a lot of teams have it, and, you know, Caleb's proven that he is that guy. Now, I think in certain situations we can, you know, improve our end of game, you know, ball screens or plays that when we need a shot at the end of the game. But do I trust Caleb to make that shot? I do. And you want a guy that's, you know, even if he missed the last 5, he believes that sixth one's going to go in. It's a buzzer beater and needs us to advance in the NCAA tournament. So he's done it already on the big stage, obviously, you know, going all the way through the tournament when he was at North Carolina. And now, I mean, he's a fun guy to watch. I love the way that he plays. He plays hard, and he's not scared. That's what you want.
I want to talk to you a little bit about Umar Ballo because, I think with big men, and you're a perfect example of this, whether it was when you broke the backboard or whatever the case may be. Was there a moment for you when the light just kind of came on? Because it feels for me like with big men, there's just, I don't know, it just feels to me like it's a little bit different than guards. Was there a moment for you that light just came on where you became AJ Bramlett?
I think just overall for bigs, it's different. I mean, it's a longer growth period. Some guys don't get it right away. Your body has to develop. There's a lot of things that go into it, that are a little bit different than the guard position. So I think definitely, people point to, me breaking the backboard, and that's when I'd already started playing better, like getting more confidence before that. And then that kind of, I don't know if it was that really, but around that time is when I started feeling comfortable. Coach Olson had a lot of confidence in me. My teammates had a lot of confidence in me. They started throwing me the ball more, giving me more responsibility, and that's when I started thriving. So I think it's different for everyone. I think we've seen Umar develop, tremendously since he first stepped on campus to where he is now. And he's a load, man. I mean, he's a dominant force in college basketball right now. There's not too many teams that can match up with him.
When you watch Keyshawn Johnson, again, I don't want to totally get this into comparisons, but it's almost a little bit like that Bennett Davison role to a certain degree, where, not a lot of plays drawn for you necessarily, but hustle, energy, and you look up and you don't realize it and you got 13-8. Yeah. And it's something like that. What do you see from Keyshawn?
I love Keyshawn. I mean, I was excited when he came to campus the first day. He's exactly what we needed kind of to upgrade, I think, from last year and provide a little bit different, just mentality, toughness, grittiness. And, he's done a heck of a job. I mean, he's a complete role player. He can score the basketball when he needs to. He just does whatever we need in certain games to win. And he just plays hard all the time. And that's what you love to see. His athleticism stands out, and he shot the ball pretty well, this year from the outside, which has been a bonus.
What are your concerns about this team? Obviously, it's like you said, this isn't it's not a flawless team. It's not like a 98 team or an 01 team at Arizona where you're like, there's really no weaknesses. Right. What do you see in this team where you're like, okay, that's something that keep an eye on, something like that?
I think it's just consistency, and especially on the defensive side of the ball. Right. I think we've taken stretches of games off this year, whether that's on the road or at home, and just keeping the foot on the pedal and really killing teams and putting them out. We've done a better job of it, recently, I think, and everyone's been locked in a little bit more on the defensive end. But as you know, NCAA tournament's all about matchups, and so. Right. Also, we're going to have to learn, and we've done it a couple of times this year, but those grinded out games that we're going to face in the tournament, can we score in the half court, which we've done a better job of than I thought we did last year. Right. Our shooting has been pretty good, I'd say, consistently through the year. And so really it's the defensive end of the ball for me. If everyone's locked in and competing at a high level like our team was in 97, that's where, people point to our offense, but it was our defense that won all those games. And so I think that's what they need to focus on to make a deep run to the Final Four.
All right. I want to get to the confidence factor there in a little bit because that obviously, I think, played a part with you and a couple other players. But first, AJ, have you ever been to Circle K before?
I have. Yes, I have.
All right. AJ Bramlett has been to Circle K. Check it out. You might see him there. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. And the Arizona Lottery. Have you ever played the Arizona Lottery, AJ Bramlett?
I have as well. Yes.
Have you ever won it? Be honest with us.
I wish, and I'll take it I'll take it if it comes.
Right. Okay. The Arizona Lottery is not just about playing games and winning prizes. It's also about giving back to the state and communities. Visit azadventure.com for more information on how you can take an adventure for a chance to win $1 million in cash and Arizona travel prizes. All right. Let's talk a little bit about confidence and just kind of where it is when it comes to basketball. Let's use Mike D for an example. Mike D is one of the most talented players I've ever seen come through here and one of the best players. Obviously, he carried you guys early in the year. Obviously, when Miles was out, North Carolina, 30 points, NAU, 30 points. Obviously, then struggled a little bit down the stretch a little bit with his confidence, but still kept playing great defense on Ron Mercer. Even you. Everybody knew, like, how good you could be, but, there was a growing pain. How do you deal with that from a teammate perspective? If you see somebody like a Kylan Boswell that, is obviously bounced back, but he's going through a little bit of a struggle, do you just kind of let him bounce out of it? Do you let him, do you encourage? How exactly does that work?
It's really about, I think, flooding them with support when they're in that
Yeah.
moment. And, Kylan's a perfect example of it. I mean, he went through a really tough stretch this year. There's a lot of noise, outside of the program, a lot of noise from fans, all those things. But one thing that he continued to do was work, and the teammates supported him. You could tell that on the floor. They supported him publicly. Tommy supported him, never changed the lineup, stuck with him, and you're seeing the dividends of that now. He's still a young player, and I think people forget that because of how well he's played over his time at Arizona. But he's a young player. He's still developing. He's still learning, and I'm completely impressed with the way that he's turned it around, in these last stretch of games. So I love Kylan Boswell.
Yeah, I think a lot of times people don't realize too, like, this day is different. When somebody comes in at 17 years old like he did, they're expected to start. Like, give an example. I've always felt that Ben Davis, in my opinion, is the most underrated big man in school history. Nobody ever brings up Ben Davis. And as you know, he was second in the Pac-12 to Sharif for the Pac-12 Player of the Year. But you got to go against Ben Davis in practice. So when AJ Bramlett's getting ready for his sophomore season, there's not a lot of guys that you're going to be really intimidated by because you're just going by a dude who is 4 years older than you. That's where it's a little bit different, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, and that's I give credit to Ben and JB, for raising me up, and teaching me the game and beating me up. And, I took my lumps that year and I averaged like 1.8 points a game my freshman year, played in some big games and all that. But I was learning every day in practice from those guys. And now, I mean, it's just our society. It's instant gratification. They want it all right now. They expect everything now. And if you're not, where everyone expects you to be, then you get criticized. And so that's why I'm proud of Kylan for the way that he handled everything, and he's playing great basketball now. And hopefully we're going to need him, obviously, if we're going to make a run, to the Final Four and beyond.
Are there players like, and again, obviously you had a very close relationship and still do, I'm sure, with Jason Terry, but are there players like JT in college basketball now that, I mean, let's be honest, you guys saw JT behind the scenes. You knew what JT could do, but it wasn't until he was a senior where the world realized, man, this might be the best player in college basketball. Are there are players built like that anymore? You coach, and I want to get to your son here in just a second, but is that the same mentality anymore, AJ?
I think, and I've seen this, spoken around Tucson that, Jaden Bradley is kind of similar to that just because of accepting his role and really not worrying about if he starts or not, but always coming in and being productive. I think he's done a heck of a job this year doing that. I mean, whether it's coming in, playing great defense, getting steals like JT used to, knocking down threes or mid-ranges or hitting big shots at the end of the games that he's done, to close out games as well. I think he's done a heck of a job kind of fitting into that mold, but you don't see it much anymore. I think, everybody, players want it, parents want it, they want you to be the starter. They want you in there all the time. And to have someone that's kind of, can sit back and say, hey, this is a little bit more of a long game. I'm the best in this role for this team right now and do that. That's a special thing. And I think we kind of have that with Jaden, but you don't see it a lot around college basketball anymore.
I'm also at the point, too, with teams. I like to have a 7 or an 8. I like to have 7 solid guys that I know. Give you an example. Obviously, you guys had JT coming off the bench. Then you had Donnell, who had one of the best games of his career in the championship, obviously against Kentucky. And then you had Gene coming in. They all offered a little bit of something different there, obviously. And this year's team got a little bit of that. Not to the extent maybe, but Jaden Bradley, you got KJ Lewis coming in as kind of that jack of all trades wing. And then you got the big man, obviously, in Mo Krivas, that's going to be kind of hit or miss. But I believe that the best teams always have a little bit of that extra oomph, for lack of a better term, sprinkled in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right. I mean, I like the breakdown that you had of what everyone provides. KJ has exceeded expectations, I would say. Not for me. I thought he was going to be a star and a productive player as soon as he got to campus, just because of the way that he's built, the way that he practices, his mindset. I mean, KJ has done a heck of a job for us so far this year. Krivas was a surprise to me. He's a lot better than I thought, and I didn't know a lot about him, but I mean he's going to be a big time player for us, and he's not scared of any situation. Being a freshman, he can go in there and at any point in the game and make an impact, whether it's defensively, offensive boards. He's a really good finisher around the basket, keeps the ball high. So, I like what our bench provides this year, and they know their role and they do it, very well.
All right, let's talk about Pella. That's a guy that definitely knows his role. You brought him up a little bit earlier. Just kind of talk about a jack of all trades, just kind of does a little bit of everything. And it always feels like his face is on the verge of being broken 9 different times by an elbow. But just talk a little bit about Pella Larson.
Yeah, I mean, Pella, this is the Pella that we've been waiting for, right? I think, and it took him some time to develop too and to get a little bit more comfortable being more aggressive. And, he's done that this year, and he's taken more responsibility as a leader on the team. His offensive side of the game has taken a big jump just for him. Shooting has been great, but just his aggressiveness overall, making plays, scoring the basketball and facilitating, and then just defense. I mean, he's all over the place all the time, and he's not scared, like you said, get on the floor, dirty plays, scraping up his knees, all that stuff that I love to death. He does. And so Pella, I'm happy for him because I think he's in a good spot right now. Yeah, we're going to need him too. He's another really key component to a long run. And but I believe in him, and he's had a really good year.
AJ, real quick, let me tell you about the BetMGM Sportsbook app, AJ Bramlett. Now, back in 97, you could have made a lot of money betting on these guys, a lot of money. All right, sign up for BetMGM, use bonus code PHNX, place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through BetMGM Sportsbook mobile app for at least $5. You will receive $150 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Check out show notes for details, and if you have an idea that there could be somebody like AJ Bramlett emerging, make some money, let's hear Damon with the disclaimer.
One problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Available in the U.S. Call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369 New York. Call 1-800-327-5050 Massachusetts. 21 plus to wager. Please gamble responsibly. Call 1-800-NEXT-STEP Arizona. 1-800-BETS-OFF Iowa. 1-800-270-7117 for confidential help Michigan. 1-800-981-0023 Puerto Rico in partnership with Kansas Crossing Casino and Hotel. Visit BetMGM.com for terms. This promotional offer is not available in New York, Nevada, Ontario, or Puerto Rico.
All right, now it's time for my BetMGM parlay. I'm picking Arizona to win tomorrow and cover against UCLA. Let me ask you this, AJ. What happened to the Pac-12? When I was growing up watching you guys, listen, Stanford was amazing. I tell this story all the time, and I don't know if you remember or not, but there was a time when I got to go to a game at Maples. I was very, very excited. And the fans there, and this is before social media, found out who Michael Dickerson's ex-girlfriend's name was and started chanting it. It was a raucous environment. Paulie, that was a must. That was a game you had to get to. What happened? I see Stanford, there's nobody there. I see Paulie, there's nobody there. It doesn't matter if they're good, bad. McHale's the only one that really survived.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question, right? Because every game we played, back then it was a sellout almost. I mean, and the environment was tough, and it's still tough now when there's no one there. It's hard to play.
Right,
so
right.
A little bit, the other end of the spectrum. But I don't know, man. I don't know if it's just, kids in society now, but I mean, McHale has done its thing, and it's still the same and provides that atmosphere. But you're right, there's been a shift, and I don't know if it's because of the conference and what's happening with it, this year and going to happen next year. But I'm not sure. That's a good question, man. It is different though.
What are your thoughts on going to the Big 12? Obviously, it's probably the best conference in basketball. You're going to have raucous environments. What are your thoughts just initially?
Iron sharpens iron, man. So that's what I say. I want to play a tough game every week, and so that's just going to help us. The more, and we may, it's going to be tough every stop, but that's going to pay off in the NCAA tournament when you've been through more and more of those type of situations and those type of games. Then when you get to the tournament, I mean, it's just another game. And so I think it's going to be a huge help to us. I like the exposure we're going to get. I want to see their matchups with Kansas and, Baylor and all these teams. I'm excited about it. I mean, I'm not excited about the Pac-12 going away because of the nostalgia and the history and everything, I had growing up. But for us moving forward, I think it's a great move.
All right, now let's talk a little bit about leadership with this, because obviously when 98 lost all the players and Arizona went in unranked, and I had never seen, again, when you're a kid, you don't Arizona was just a rite of passage. 95, 96, and 98, 99 were the only times that I can remember a team not being ranked. Yep. But you had you and JT, but you had a loaded freshman class coming in, obviously. You had Ruben Douglas, who went back to your neck of the woods, obviously, and did some things. Richard Jefferson, Michael Wright. What responsibility, I guess, did you feel as an all-conference guy, JT as well, to be able to make these guys transitions? Because by the end of the year, Michael Wright was as good a freshman as there was in the conference. You could see what RJ was doing. Ruben had gotten into the starting lineup at that point. How much of it was just you guys, saying we got to really take a leadership role here?
Well, I mean, we were prepared for that. I mean, and
Right.
I think if you look over the history of Arizona basketball and Coach Olson's teams, you prepared the next generation for that role. And
Right.
so it didn't matter if you barely, played your freshman year. By the time you were a senior, you were ready to lead the team in whatever
Right.
capacity you needed to do. And so, JT and I knew that we were going to have that responsibility. We always knew that, even when we came in as freshmen, that by the time we were seniors, we were going to be the guys. And so we had to prepare that way. We played different roles all the way through, those 4 years. And then by the time, we got to our senior year, it was our turn to kind of put our stamp on the program and help those guys learn. And they could take it on, as Richard did and Luke did. And those guys, took it from there and ran with it from there. So it was just really about instilling, the attention to detail, responsibility to the program, history of the program, and, meeting Coach Olson's expectations and teaching them how to do that. If you did that, you'd be successful.
Let's talk a little bit then. Let's go back a couple of years. I've talked about this for a long time. I believe that, 97, 98, obviously, I believe that was the best collection of perimeter talent that college basketball has ever seen. And here's my case. Mike Bibby, first-team All-American. We're going to get back to that in a second.
Yeah.
Miles Simon, first-team All-American. Michael Dickerson, third-team All-American. Jason Terry, next year, the National Player of the Year. You don't see that. I'm telling you. So when people talk about it, that was just overwhelming talent. So in hindsight, it really wasn't necessarily a Cinderella story. It felt like it at the time, obviously, because of, how it kind of backed in. But I believe that's as good a perimeter as you could ever find in college basketball, just based off the accolades, AJ.
No, I absolutely agree with you. And, that's what I've always said is like, that everyone thinks it's a Cinderella run, like you said, and sometimes it was, but the talent was always there. It was just us figuring out, Coach Olson figuring out how to best mesh it together and allow us to play our best basketball. But if you talk about any of those guys, and it's still to this day, people are like, man, you guys had so many guards, like incredibly talented guys. And, JT 20 plus years in the NBA and, a great NBA career, Miles and Mike Bibb. I mean, all of them. So, we didn't have any weaknesses, at all. And they all provided kind of different things, but they were all killers. They were all dogs, man. So.
Talk a little bit about so Bibby, I try to explain this to the younger crowd. The hype around Bibby was just insane. I remember I snuck into the game at Sal Point when he played, I had to basically sneak in, and I'll be honest with you, when I first watched him, and keep in mind, I'm just a kid, I'm 12 at the time, and I'm watching it, and this is during the age of Stephon Marbury, Allen Iverson, dudes coming in and crossing you up and dunking, and I watched it, and I came away saying that's John Stockton, not that it was bad or anything.
Yeah.
And then the more you watched him, and I remember the Red-Blue game where it was just like, man, this dude's something different.
Yeah.
Like just talk a little bit, because I put out a tweet a while back. I believe he's the best point guard in the conference the last 30 years. I'll take him over anybody. I'll take him over Barron. I'll take him over, all those guys. Just talk a little bit about Bibby and just what it was like playing with him.
Yeah. I mean, I've always said this. I mean, Mike is the best basketball player I ever played with in terms of just knowing every single nuance of the game at every single point. You know what I mean? If a guy hadn't touched the ball in a couple possessions, he'd get you the ball and make sure you stayed engaged in the game. If Mike D needed to get a quick basket, he'd figure out a way to drive to the basket, get Mike D a dunk. Like, he was so smart as a basketball player, and then just not afraid ever to take a big shot and make it. You know what I mean? So he took care of the ball. He was just an all-around pure point guard that had a killer mentality. You know what I mean? And so I was talking to him last week, and I saw this interview that he posted on his social, on his IG, with Kobe talking about him. And
that was amazing.
And I said, man, that is just badass, man. That's one of the best videos you could ever have as a basketball player, is someone like that giving you that kind of compliment of, you're the best competitor I played against, and I enjoyed it the most competing against you. And that pretty much says it all about what Bib is.
Yeah, talk a little bit about the Miles kind of behind the scenes, because I watch obviously watch like The Last Dance or whatever with Michael Jordan. I'm not saying that Miles is but I kind of imagine that being a little bit with just that indomitable will to win.
Yeah.
Just, you could see when he was ineligible, he's flying out to North Carolina to be there with you guys behind the bench. What was just Miles like, just from a leadership and just that will to win perspective?
I mean, Miles is just a winner. I mean, in life, in basketball, I mean, you still see to this day what he's doing. And, you had a guy that had complete and utter confidence in himself to make a play, to make a free throw, to make a shot, to get a steal, whatever it was. He wanted to win, and he wasn't scared to do anything to win. He did have a similar, mentality to Michael Jordan, where, you didn't take plays off, you pushed your teammates, and he just believed in himself so much that we believed in him, obviously. Right. And to come back from, I don't care what anyone says, that might be the greatest feat in NCAA history, is not to play for the first half of a season and come back and be the MVP of the Final Four and lead into a championship. I mean, nobody's ever done that. So
what people forget a lot of the time too is you got to remember here, and again, you live in Tucson where it's a fishbowl and whatnot. People, you got to remember, because you guys are rolling at that time. Yeah. I mean, you're starting to come along. JT's doing his thing at the 2. Bibby, Michael Dickerson's probably the best player in the conference at that point. And then they kind of sputter a little bit, and people are, papers are asking, well, is this team better without Miles? All of that stuff, and then you just realize, and I always go back to that South Alabama game where everybody's struggling, and it's like, oh gosh, here we go. And it felt like Miles just lived at the free throw line for the last 9 minutes, basically, after the team was struggling the whole time. And that was just kind of Miles encapsulated right there, that it didn't really matter. You wanted him taking those free throws.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I trusted him more than anybody to make free throws at the end of the game and to figure out how to get fouled. I mean, he was a great drawer of fouls. He knew how to do that. He knew how to use his voice to get fouls. He was just a really, really smart basketball player and just a winner. Like I said, he was just a killer every time. So, yeah, I mean, Miles was incredible.
All right, so let's talk Kansas. Most people's favorite game is, and I don't blame it at all because it's when you guys won the national championship, is Kentucky. But the game that always will stick out to me always will be Kansas. And just because Kansas was viewed as unbeatable that year. They had one loss. It was a veteran-laden team. I think Roy Williams a while back said he still considered it his best team, and I think he's probably right about that. But the thing that still sticks out to me, and I watched the game again a while back, you guys didn't look nervous in that game. You didn't look at all intimidated, and you were balling at that point. I mean, from College of Charleston on, you were killing it, but you didn't have there was clearly no nerves going against Pollard or, Rafe LaFrentz. Same with the guys. Did you guys know you were going to win that? And be honest with it, because it looks like you had a good idea.
So this is the thing, like, I mean, people, they don't always believe it, but like we knew we were going to win that game. Like beforehand, we were loose in practice. We were joking around, like laughing. I mean, still paying attention to detail for Coach O, but like we felt inside that we knew we were going to win. And that was after the first 2 games at South Alabama and the College of Charleston. I don't know what came over us or why, but every single game, like we felt like we were going to win, especially against Kansas. They had knocked us out the year before that year. So we wanted some get back from that game. Right. And, that was probably Mike D's best offensive game against Kansas during the tournament, and Paul Pierce, because he loved matching up and going against Paul Pierce. And just our energy and our chemistry was just perfect, man. And so we knew it. We weren't nervous. You're right. We weren't. We were ready.
Lute was more nervous than you guys were.
Yeah, he looked like that on the sideline, didn't he? He did, but we knew.
Because Lute always just had such kind of that stoic presence and whatnot. And I'll just remember, like, when Bibby's shooting those free throws and Lute can't even look at it. And you got an 18-year-old kid. But let's talk about you, though, because, I mean, again, you were a monster in that tournament. And you went against, again, we're talking Nazir Muhammad. We're talking Pollard. We're talking, and granted, I know it's a little bit of a different position, but Austin Crozier in the Elite Eight. Just keep Serge Swicker, Antoine Jameson. You were going into each game, AJ, and you were getting like 13 and 15, 13 and 16. Did the game just slow down for you? Was it just like, I'm every bit as good, if not better than these guys? Because Arizona doesn't go anywhere without those kind of performances from you.
Yeah, I think, it's like we talked about earlier. It started to click for me, and it started to, my confidence was at an all-time high. We had played a tough schedule that year, so I'd already been playing against, that kind of competition, but didn't have the results, early in the season. But it's just really about believing in yourself. And this is what I tell, to my son and, all young players out there. You have to have just complete confidence in yourself, like we talked about with Miles. That will get you a long way. And if you have the ability and you work hard and, you pay attention to detail and you learn, you can do anything. And so during that thing, I felt free. You're right. The game was slow. I had no worries. I wasn't nervous. I was just out there playing basketball and not thinking so much, just playing. And, I say it's the best, stretch of games for my career, probably was. And we needed it. But
don't underestimate your senior year, big dog. Don't underestimate your senior year.
But I mean, it was totally free, like effortless basketball is what it was. It was fun.
So get into Kentucky game, obviously, and it goes into overtime. But I remember thinking this the entire game, and it's not often that you say, you guys just look more talented than Kentucky. Granted, I know they didn't have Derek Anderson, but just from like point guard position on, and even Mike D, when he was struggling, he was still doing a really good job of chasing Ron Mercer off screens. And it just, you guys just look like a better team. I mean, that's the way it looked.
Yeah, I mean, I think that showed, early in the game. I think when they pressed us and they couldn't really turn us over at all, I think that was a shock to them. And, Bib handled that press, and, I was in the middle of it for most of the game, and we just made sound decisions, got through it, and, battled and fought. And I'd say our talent matched up with anybody, man. Yeah. You know what I mean? And Mike D wasn't at his best maybe offensively, but you're right. I mean, he was running through, triple staggers and, getting through screens, and he didn't let Mercer do anything in that game. It was just it was a fun game. I agree with our talent level, and, everyone just wanted to win. And that's just like Donnell coming in off the bench and hitting free throws in overtime. Gene playing tough. Yeah. Everybody did a little bit of whatever, because I was in foul trouble most of that game, which sucked. But I believe totally in our guys, and we got it done.
Donnell was ready for that moment too, because I remember when you started getting a little bit nervous, because like you said, you were in foul trouble a good percentage of the game. But man, Donnell was ready for that moment, and I think like everybody else, we just didn't know, because I mean, because you had really taken the bull by the horns at that point. But when Donnell came in, like you said, he was getting opportunistic rebounds. He was getting to the free throw line. Yep. Kind of an unsung hero in that game, AJ.
Oh, he's a hero. He's not even unsung in that one, because he came. I mean, really in overtime. I mean, there was no basket scored. It was just free throws, and Donnell did a heck of a job coming in, and at the biggest stage and the biggest time of his career, he delivered. And you're always going to remember him at the free throw line, knocking down those free throws when we needed them most. So Donnell's a great guy, man. And I'm just happy that he had that experience in that moment.
He's another guy like you that should be in media. Seriously, he's got some of the best voices I've ever heard, man. I mean, it's
absolutely
deep. It's very impressive. All right, I want to talk a little bit about your son now next, because I see what's going on there. He looks like a pretty good player as well. I want to talk a little bit about that, but first, got to pay the bills here, AJ. Where should we go here? Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Have you ever been there, AJ?
I have, yes.
Okay,
nice place, very nice place.
Yeah, be like AJ, and you might even see him there. You can't miss him. He's only, what are you legitimately, 6'11"?
6'10".
6'10". All right, cool. Well, you should still be able to find him. He's 6'10". So if he's there, check it out. Gila River Resorts and Casinos, a fun, immersive experience. Check it out. Again, you do you at Gila River Resorts and Casinos. Visit playatgila.com for more details. And Illegal Pete's. That was not here when you were here, AJ, but it is a very good place.
I hear you talk about it all the time, though. It sounds great.
It's really, really good. Check out Illegal Pete's. The college basketball season is in crunch time. Win or lose, Illegal Pete's is here to bring you a win with the legendary sound check deal. Bring in your ticket stub from any ticketed event and get a draft beer or a house margarita for a penny. Illegal Pete's wants to celebrate with you, whether it's a pregame meal or a postgame party. With locations in Tucson, Tempe, Arizona, they get you covered in all your game day needs. Must purchase an adult entree to redeem Illegal Pete's sound check deal. Illegal Pete's, your go-to spot for burritos, buddies, and beer. AJ, let's talk about your son. Looks like a pretty good basketball player from those clips that I've seen. Let's talk a little bit about him. How does he compare to AJ? How is he different than AJ? Because he looks like he plays a little bit different.
Yeah, he's totally different. I mean, his name's Drew. He's a freshman this year. He's a point guard, and so I always kind of, and a lot of people may not know this or believe it, but when I was getting recruited by the Lobos at UNM, they were recruiting me as a 3-man. So I was, in high school, played some guard, a little bit, handled the ball, passed, thought that I could do all that stuff. And I probably would have developed differently, if I was playing in today's game, but he has all those things. So he's a, ball handler, facilitator, can shoot it, can score, loves the game. So,
How tall are we talking?
No, he's like 5'10", 5'11" right now. But he's got a long way to go in terms of that.
Were you a late grower?
No, I was pretty much always tall, except for in 8th grade, I grew from 6'4" to like 6'4.5". I mean, 6 foot to 6'4.5". That was my big group. But I was always like the tallest. And in 5th grade, I was 5'10", so I was always always big, man.
Right.
But he's got a long way to go in terms of that. But he's working his butt off. He loves the game, and I'm trying to just teach him, the process and get where he wants to go.
Do you ever have people say, man, you could have teamed with Kenny Thomas and had the best front line in New Mexico history? You ever get any of that?
I hear that once a week over here, man.
Right.
Once a week. Yeah. And we would have. I mean, Kenny and I talked to Kenny a couple of days ago. We're still, really good friends, hang out all the time. And it would have been fun. Our AAU team, New Mexico Flight won, national BCI tournament back then, and we were really good. So Kenny was a heck of a player, man.
Talk a little bit about when Lute started recruiting you, when he got into the scene, obviously. Obviously Arizona's coming off of a Final Four against Arkansas. It's kind of become more of a up-tempo, guard-oriented, Damon Khalid, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So how did Lute start to come into the picture for you? When did you first hear from him, and how did that go?
That was, like I just said, that was during we had played in back then. There was only like 3 big AAU tournaments, one in Phoenix, one in Vegas, and one in Orlando. And we had lost in Vegas, but he had come to check me out a little bit there. And then we went to Phoenix, and we made it all the way through there. So we had beat like Dallas and California and Boston and all these good teams, and ran all the way through that tournament. And that's really when my recruitment from Coach O started to pick up. And we won that tournament. And then all of us, pretty much on that team, were being recruited by pretty much high D1s after that. So, but I had always had an affinity for Arizona. I always liked him growing up. And then Coach O, I mean, once he says anything to you, it's a wrap pretty much. So,
how'd the visit go?
He came to my house in Albuquerque and came over and had dinner with my parents and I. And I mean, when he walks in, it's like the president walking into your house. You know what I mean? And so my parents were, thoroughly impressed. I was too. And it was just awesome. It's still, I can see it now of him just walking down the stairs into the house and, sitting down and telling me what his plans were for me and what he thought the team could be, once I got there. And especially, after when Mike signed, he was like, your second year, we're gonna have this kid that's coming in. That's incredible. So you're gonna want to play with this guy. And he was right.
Now talk a little bit about your relationship with Jason Terry, because it just always felt like you guys, just from an outsider perspective, it always just felt that you guys just had a very unique bond. Obviously, classmates and whatnot. You're a big man, he's a guard, but just talk a little bit about your relationship with JT.
Yeah, no, JT. I mean, we were brothers since the first day. I mean, we started at the All-Star game, the Reebok All-American game in Albuquerque. That's the first time I ever met him. He came and, we hung out there. We knew we were going to Arizona, so we had a little bit of contact. But, I mean, the first day that we got onto campus, we ran into each other at the mall, at the Foothills Mall. And then since then, I mean, we were together for 4 years, everywhere that we went, on the court, off the court, everything. And so he's like my brother, man. And he's been that way, for years, all through the NBA stuff. And now, we're even closer. We're going to be a part of his AAU program as well. With my son will be playing. So, JT's he's JT, man. He's a legend. So he's a good dude.
One of my favorite memories of JT is, so Baron Davis comes into McHale, and Baron Davis at that point, this was your guys' senior year, obviously. And Baron Davis has all the hype in the world, and he's supposed to be, JT's killing it at that point. He's averaging, 20 points per game, but all the hype is on Baron Davis, and they got into each other's face under the basket at one point. And I just remember thinking, man, that's a real one right there. He doesn't care who Baron Davis is. It didn't matter to him. No. It just kind of encapsulated JT, that underestimate him at your own peril.
Well, I mean, JT is a dog, you know what I mean? Right. And he always came. I mean, for us in college, he always hit big shots, always hit big free throws, wasn't scared of the moment ever. And that translated into NBA as well. I mean, when they won that championship with the Mavericks, I mean, he was going head to head with LeBron.
He was giving Bron the business.
Winning that battle and telling him about it.
Yeah.
Through that. So, that's been him since he was a kid. It's just ingrained in him, and he's no different now. I mean, JT's he's one of the best ever.
All right, before we sign off, a couple things here. Phoenix Raceway. All right, check this out. All right, all kinds of good stuff. Now, AJ Bramlett, have you ever been in a NASCAR? You strike me as being too tall.
That is one thing I have never done. I've never done it.
I'd have to cut the roof off. All right. I do not have the same problem. Get your tickets to the Shriners Children's 500 at Phoenix Raceway. March 8th to 10th promises a weekend of good vibes for the whole family. Get your reserved grandstand tickets now at phoenixraceway.com. And never better time to become a PHNX diehard. Head over to Go PHNX now and join the best sports fans in the city, in the state. All kinds of cool stuff, stuff off merchandise, clothes, etc., etc. All right, AJ, we need to stay in touch, though, because you need to have a podcast. I don't care if you're being employed by anybody, because like I said, when I put out that you were going to get on, I got 6 different DMs from people saying your insight, your passion is it's really good. We've had a lot of ex-athletes on the show, and a lot of them, I'm not saying that they should do that. You need to be involved in this somehow, AJ.
I appreciate it, man. I enjoy doing it. So I like the kind words and the support for sure, man. It's been cool.
All right, we'll figure it out. But like I said, man, like I said, always appreciate it. And you're the best, man. And like I said, without AJ Bramlett, there is no championship. Leading rebounder in the 1997 NCAA tournament. But again, I still say that your senior year, don't sell yourself short, because you pretty much dominated that entire season.
I appreciate it, my man.
for AJ Bramlett, I'm Mike Luke. You've been listening to the AZ Wildcats podcast.
Thanks, man.
Appreciate you, bro.
We all silly like the mayor.